Welcome to another episode of High Tea with Hony. I'm your host, Hony Premlal. Today, I'm thrilled to have Sheila Starr as our guest. Sheila is a highly experienced coach and trainer who has dedicated her career to helping individuals, particularly women, unlock their potential and achieve success. With her corporate background spanning over 34 years across various industries, Sheila has climbed the ranks to senior leadership. Despite leaving school at 16 with limited qualifications, her journey is one of resilience, ambition, and overcoming self-doubt. Sheila's passion lies in empowering women to break through mindset barriers and limiting beliefs, helping them to rise to leadership roles and embrace the power they hold. Her no-nonsense, down-to-earth approach has helped countless women to develop the confidence and skills needed to succeed in the workplace. Today, we delve into topics like the need for more female leaders, strategy to set up the career ladder, what makes a great leader, and Sheila's personal story of climbing at the top. So navigating the male-dominated industries as well, so founding her own business after the redundancy. So grab a cup of tea. So let's delve into a fascinating conversation with Sheila. Welcome to High Tea with Hony, Sheila. How are you today?
That's great, yeah, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here. Looking forward to a chat.
Thank you, and I was really looking forward to have a conversation with you. I know I heard your story, but always love to hear it again. Your journey has been inspiring, starting with leaving school at 16. Can you tell us about the challenges you faced as you climbed the ladder to senior leadership position, especially without the traditional qualifications?
Yeah, sure, because it's funny, because when I was at school, I didn't hate school, but I didn't really like school much either, just kind of like tolerated it really. I kind of enjoyed sport and music and things, so I went off and did that, and I was one of those average people. I wasn't bottom of the class, I wasn't top of the class, I just kind of like, just got my way through it. And even though when I was quite young I did have these grand thoughts of perhaps being a physiotherapist or something like that, I realised how much studying that involved, and I didn't really like studying. So I just decided to leave school, and I was actually 15 when I left school, because my birthday's in the summer, but I started work a week after my 16th birthday. And I remember back, people kind of saying, oh, that's a nice little job, and yeah, it's good that you're at work. And there was this underlying current of, well, yeah, but without, A levels or without a university degree, then yeah, you'd be all right, but you probably won't really get anywhere. I just remember always having that thought in the back of my mind. I was just like, well, I'll just see what happens. But once I started work, and I just started work as an office junior, I've probably made some teas, I did some data entry and various things, but I just found that the environment really suited me, because it was about learning on the job. It was practical. I could kind of see why I was learning what I was doing and why I was doing the stuff, whereas at school it always felt quite theoretical, and I was like, don't really enjoy it. But once I got into the world of work, I just realised that this was a good place for me, and I just took every opportunity. So I learned everything I could. I took, I grabbed any project that was going on. I asked lots of questions. I got myself involved with everything that was going on. I was, when I very first started work at 16, I had punky type hair and wild makeup. And I used to wear these skull boots they had skulls as buckles, and I used to make this real noise when I walked around the office. So I made quite an impression when I first started work. Everybody knew me, and I was this strange girl. But I just always I was quite happy talking to people, and I just always wanted to find out what they were doing. So I spent about 3 years, I was like an office junior, and then, got a couple of other jobs in that first place. And then just, I don't know, went for a different job. I saw a job come up, and I just thought, well, that sounds interesting, let's go and do that. And over the sort of, I guess probably the first 10 years of my career, they were all kind of admin based jobs, and I just learned as much as I could. And then I found myself, I found a mentor, really, a sort of informal mentor, somebody that I really got on with and I worked well. And she went and got herself a job at Volvo Car UK, so the head office at Volvo Cars. and she got me a job there, and that kind of started my career really, because although it was still an admin job when I started, I then got myself into customer service, which is where then my career really started. I then didn't apply for a team leader job when I should have applied for a team leader job, and saw the guy that got the job and thought, why did I not go for that? I could have done that. But that was the first time I think I properly felt I'm not good enough, I'm not ready for this, I can't do that, what if I get it and I can't do it, that whole feeling. And then when I saw him get it, I was like, no, I can definitely do that. So fortunately, another team leader job came up within like a couple of months, and I went for it and got it, and I was good at it. I'm good with people, I'm good at that sort of, I've always been a bit of a natural leader. Even when I was little, I used to be the person that organised things, that took people on the journey, that sort of told people what to do. So that bit came naturally. And yeah, so I got that team leader job, and then from there I progressed to a manager role. And then I think the thing that then really changed my career was when I applied for a job that I had no business applying for. And that was what got me into housing. So I applied for a job that was to set up a contact centre from scratch. There was nothing there in social housing that I knew nothing about, didn't even know what it was at the time. And I nearly stopped myself applying for that job, but I thought, what have I got to lose? I mean, they wanted somebody with social housing experience, somebody to set up a contact centre that I'd never done, and somebody with a university degree. None of those things I had, but I went for it anyway. And when I got an interview, and you've probably heard me say before, once you've got an interview, you've got a chance. So I went along, and I smashed the interview, got offered the job on the same day, and that started my career in housing then. And that's not to say I didn't have those moments again. There's probably other jobs that I maybe should have applied for along the way, but that career in housing allowed me to really create a role for myself. I climbed the ladder in housing, and I moved to the dark side in the end, as they say. Became the director of IT and innovation along that journey. So I think for me it was just about grabbing every opportunity when you can and putting on your brave pants sometimes.
That's an amazing story itself to start with. So you spent over 3 decades in different industries. So what are some common challenges you have seen for women face in workplace, and how you help them to overcome these barriers now? Because as a coach.
Yeah, I think there are challenges for women in work because, we are brought up differently. It doesn't matter what we say. Even now, traditionally, we think of the woman as the homemaker, the child carer. And I know that there is more balance than there's ever been before. But, if you think of a woman, it is the person that does that side of life. That's the tradition that we've got and, maybe it's bias, and it's nice to see sometimes that isn't the case, because it is changing, but it hasn't changed enough. And I think as women, we are still brought up being perhaps modest, not perhaps showing off about things, not being pushed to do some of the things that boys just kind of do. So I think that we've got a bit of an ingrained lack of self-belief that we're good enough to do things that we really want to do. And I've seen that a lot. And I mean, I felt it myself as well. And I'm quite a confident person, but I still feel, oh God, a bit scary. Do I really want to do that? And I think we worry about looking stupid, don't we? We worry about getting something wrong and, people like judging us on it. But actually people don't really remember things for very long. So I think the thing that we have to try and get over is to realise how good we actually are. And actually we do need to tell people, because people don't just see it. We like to think we sit down at our desks, we do a fantastic job, we deliver everything we should be delivering, and we then kind of assume that people will see us for that, and that actually then we'll get promoted, or we'll get pulled onto a project, or we'll get invited to apply for that next level job. And that does happen occasionally, but I think you have to make it work. You have to get out there, and we have to not be shy about sharing our achievements. And that's not about showing off. It's just about sharing them. So it's about being proud of what we've done. And the first step is to actually recognise it ourselves, because I don't think we even recognise it ourselves sometimes. We're not good at compliments, are we? Oh, you look lovely today. Oh, yeah. I don't feel lovely. Oh, that's a lovely shirt you're wearing. Oh, this old thing. We don't really embrace that sort of praise, and which means that we don't praise ourselves. And sometimes we notice all the things that we've done wrong or haven't gone quite so well, but we don't notice the things that we've done really well. So one of the things I always say to people is, perhaps at the end of every day or week or whatever works for you, sit down and go, okay, what went well this week? What have I actually achieved? Even the small things, because those things add up and then they build your self-esteem. There's definitely things around we have to be better at selling ourselves, because, particularly in interviews, I think that's one of the biggest things is people go to interviews and they got scenarios, but they talk about too much detail. They don't talk about the actual business impact that it had, or the result, or the difference that it made. And that's what we need to be talking about. The visibility thing that you talk about is definitely a big thing. And that's harder because of so much working from home, that actually it can be hard. But the world's opened up again and there are opportunities, and from the networking and conferences that you've been to recently that there are ways to get out there and see people, meet new people, not be shy about telling them who you are and what you're doing. And people need to get to know you, because that's how you create opportunities in your career. So I think there's just some little things that people need to start, and a lot of people lack confidence. But I do say a lot that actually it's courage that you need and not confidence, because confidence grows. We grow as we learn to do things, as we speak up in meetings, as we do webinars, presentations, whatever it is, the confidence grows. But you have to have the courage just to get started. So decide what it is that you want to do and be courageous enough to take that first step.
Totally agree with you, Sheila. When you have the courage, it doesn't matter. You can do anything, isn't it? So yeah. I know you talked about mindset. I know you always say about limiting belief as well. So can you give an example of limiting belief people have, especially women have, and then how can we shift that limiting belief to we can do that? Yeah. And how do you get that into your head?
Yeah, so limiting beliefs are interesting. I mean, we all have beliefs, and they come from all sorts of places, from the way we've been brought up, our background, the environment, things that have happened to us. And there are beliefs that we have that are global beliefs. Things like all politicians are liars. And then there's personal beliefs. So it might be that I'll never be a good leader, or I'm always rubbish at interviews. And sometimes it stems from our background. So, I was working with somebody recently who went to university, but she was the first person in our family who went to university. And initially there was this nobody in my family has ever been to university, so, I won't either. And actually, if you talk about money, because I think money is quite an important thing for women, a lot of women will, if you say you want to earn 100 grand, there'll be women going, I'll never earn 100 grand. They might have been brought up to feel that it's greedy. They might have been brought up to feel that people who earn that sort of money aren't nice people, or you have to work, really, really hard to earn that money. But none of that's true. It's not difficult to earn 100 grand. I left school at 16. I ended up earning 100 grand. So, it's absolutely doable. I'm not a nasty person. I don't feel like I'm greedy. I didn't have to work. I worked hard, but not over hard in order to earn that money. So these beliefs come from our background, things that other people tell us, things that we hear in the media. And then we tell ourselves that they're true, but they're not true. Because we all have different beliefs, so they can't all be true. So what happens is we get these little gremlins and they go round in our head telling us these things. So if we take something like interviews, I'm absolutely no good at interviews. Whenever I go for an interview, I never get the job. Then what then happens is that becomes an ingrained belief, and so then you kind of stop going for interviews. But actually you can learn to be better at interviews, and that's where your kind of growth mindset comes in. So we have to tell ourselves, okay, that interview didn't go so well, but the next time, what did I learn from that interview? Where can I go to get some help to be better at interviews? Maybe that just wasn't the right job. Maybe actually my interview is quite good, but that just wasn't the right job for me. And the same thing with the money or the big job. I'll never be a chief exec. Why not? Why are you telling yourself that? Other people are chief execs and they're no different to you really in your life and your experience. So we just have these little gremlins that go around in our heads, and they are all things that we've told ourselves or we've picked up from the environment. And the thing is that the first thing to I guess understand is it isn't true. whatever belief you've got, it doesn't have to be true. So you have to kind of just understand that to start with, that you absolutely can change the way that you think about things. And part of that is just sitting down and looking at it and deciding, I don't want to be that person anymore. Who do I want to be? Perhaps think about, actually, I'm going to be the person that stands up and presents. I'm going to be the next executive director. And just start believing in it. And it's about talking to yourself. So you have this like inner language. We talk to ourselves, don't we? We tell ourselves. And I think as women, we have a lot of negative language about ourselves. Even like, oh, you stupid cow. If you do something wrong, why does it always happen to me? Well, it doesn't. Of course, it happens to everybody. And actually, you're not stupid. You just made a small mistake. It doesn't matter. Just think about it differently. It's about training your brain to think more positively about things. And actually, yet is a really powerful word, because sometimes we say, I can't run 5k. No, I can't run 5k yet. I can't stand up on stage and present. I can't stand on stage and present yet, because you can always do these things. But what we have to understand is that sometimes we don't want to do these things. So you have to really ask yourself, what is it you really want to do? And then tell yourself that you can do it. And people talk about affirmations, and they're really powerful things where you can sit down and flip it. So if you've got something specific you want to do and you believe you can't do it, then find an affirmation that says, I don't know, like I have got all the resources inside to do what I need to do, or I am capable of earning 100 grand, or I will be the next executive director, because our brain only knows what we tell it. So we have to tell it something better. It's not easy. It does take a bit of work, and this is the problem. It's a bit like anything, isn't it? If you want to lose weight, you don't stop eating biscuits for one day. You have to stop eating biscuits for every day. And it's the same with your mindset. You have to train it, and you have to keep doing it. And I talk a bit about the power of reflection, because I think reflection is really powerful for people. Just to sit down perhaps at the end of each day and tell themselves how good they are. What is it they really want? What are they capable of doing? And really reflect on what they want, and then have that positive language. So positive self-talk.
The positive self-talk, and it's like brushing your teeth. You need to make the habit, isn't it? Otherwise you will forget. I know you talk about female leaders. Why do you believe diversity and more female leaders are necessary, creating better environment? So how do you female leaders impact workplace differently? What's your views on that?
I think they do. Yeah, I think there's research and evidence out there that says that organisations run by women are better. They're more profitable. They've got better staff engagement, better productivity, and I think that's. I don't know why women are better leaders than men from that respect, from like running the business, but I just think that women have this. Because they nurture things, because women are more nurturing, they tend to build better relationships with people. Environments tend to be less bullying, if you like, and less toxic. Don't get me wrong. There are women out there who bully, and there are women who don't support other women. But generally, women are more nurturing, and I think they lead with more compassion. So when they're leading, they are better at building like collaborative spaces. They're better at team building. Actually, women tend to take more risks as well. Sometimes they're a bit more innovative. Sometimes about things in this sort of office workspace. And so I think that we do definitely do need more women. And even without that, I think we need more women from all backgrounds, because then you do get a more diverse opinion. We don't all want to agree, because if we all agree, you only need one person. You don't need everybody. And I think we have to have different opinions. People will have different ideas, and whatever that is, whether you need men, you need people from different backgrounds, you need people of different ages, you need all of that in the workplace. And at the moment we still see a lot of white men running organisations, and there might be the token diversity that comes in, and I think that's a real shame. And for women specifically, I think we do need more role models, because we do need to see that women can be successful, but also that they can be successful and have a life. they can be successful and have a family. Because, you know, in the past, the women that have been successful often haven't had families, or they've farmed out family responsibilities perhaps to nannies or, you know, grandparents or whatever. And actually, I think the world is more flexible now, and I think we need to understand that we don't need to be working 9 to 5 in an office in order to be successful. And I think that opens up the world for women in one respect, because it allows us to do all those other responsibilities whilst we're at work, and I think we definitely need that so that people can see that it's possible. But on the other hand, it has a bit of a detrimental effect, because without the visibility, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And so where men generally have got the resources to be able to go into the office, go networking, go things, because they haven't got quite the same family responsibilities, women then struggle with that. So out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So I think there is a real balance, but that needs to change. And I think women have a responsibility. Obviously, companies have a responsibility, society has a responsibility to change it. But I can't change all of that. You know, individually, I know some individuals have made a massive difference in the world, but most of us are quite normal people. But we can change ourselves. So we can be that role model. We can believe that, you know, and it's about supporting each other to be successful, so that we've got role models, and then we've got this workplace that isn't just designed around men. We've got services that aren't just designed around men. We've got a world, you know, I mean, if you think back to, you know, the PPE disaster over COVID, and there was so many women who, particularly in the construction industry, you know, didn't have PPE that fit because it's all designed for men. It's silly little things like that where we can change. We can decide to make that change, and I think that's what we need to do in order to make it just a better place for us all to be.
I agree with you, because a lot of the areas, you know, don't think about women also work these industries, you know, men at work. When you see the signs on the road, still is men at work, because
Exactly.
women also working. I know you touched upon the visibility and self-promotion. You know, I know that's one of the areas I struggled like 5 years ago, because even though I'm doing lots and lots of stuff, people see, honey, you're doing all this stuff now. No, I did those stuff before as well. Obviously, it's one of the areas a lot of women struggle to do this, the visibility and promotion about themselves. You see, like you touched upon it before. You feel like, you know, it's a showing off. You know, how do you do that? Because I know men probably done it before, so probably they didn't feel that. So what advice would you give to those women? They're still not struggling, because I know when you get you know, CVs for especially for senior roles, you looked at LinkedIn and say, okay, what do they do? How they promote themselves? What activities they do? So sometimes you don't see much from some people. So what advice would you give to those women really still struggling?
Yeah, so I think visibility, particularly on like social media, so if you take LinkedIn as an example, I think women, they worry that they're going to post something that is going to offend people, or that upset people, or people aren't going to agree with it, or they worry about, you know, they just don't like promoting themselves. It's this real modesty, isn't it? Because we feel like it's brash, we feel like it's a bit arrogant, perhaps a bit pushy, and it really isn't, because generally people are quite interested in you, and we do buy people. So if you're looking, you know, if you're running your own business, people buy you, they don't buy your business. If you're going for a job, people want to know about you. Yes, they want to know about your skills, but they want to know about you because you have to fit into the organisation. So all of this visibility is about people just getting to know you and know who you are. And I'd say, firstly, about posting on social media, definitely do it. You know, post something personal about, you know, what exercise you do, how you did learn to run 5k, you know, post about something that you are interested in at work. And I've been working with some people who, you know, want to get better jobs, and I'm like, well, find people on LinkedIn that are talking about the things that you want to be involved in your next job, and comment on their posts. So you can kind of start small with that sort of thing. Just comment on other people's posts, perhaps to start with. Something valuable, not just this is interesting, but why do you find it interesting? What's your opinion on it, so that people get to know who you are. And then put a post out. Put a post out there and see how it goes. And I think when we post, particularly, people are interested in what we're doing. And if you post, like housing, for example, is a sector where lots of people know each other. They're all interested in the same things. And I'm sure that's the same in, a lot of sectors. So post something about what it is that you and your team have done, or what you've found out about, or what you've achieved, how you've solved a problem. And I think the thing is, rather than thinking of it being about you, think about it as being how you can help somebody else. Sharing your story is going to help somebody else. So I think from a visibility on social media point of view, there's lots of different ways you can do it. Have a think about what you're going to say about your post, but just go for it. And the thing is with social media is, you post something today, tomorrow everybody's forgotten about it. So even if it was a really rubbish post, it doesn't really matter. And don't worry about whether people are actually looking at it or not either. Just do the post and reply to any comments, and just start it. It's the same with anything. We're always rubbish at it when we first start. The first time you wrote a customer letter, it was probably a bit rubbish. The first time you baked a cake, maybe it didn't go quite so well. You just have to keep trying and not worry about it. And visibility is about consistency. You can't just show up when you need something or when you want something, or you have to show up consistently. That's how people get to see you, especially on social media, because we don't all see everything that's going on anyway. Other types of visibility around, like getting out and like going networking, that can be really scary, but actually just decide that you want to meet new people. Go on your own, definitely, because otherwise you stick with the person that you've gone with. And why are you going networking? You're going networking so that you can meet other people that might have opportunities for you in the future. It's a long-term strategy, but it does work quite well. And because you grow your network when you're out there, and then when projects come up, when interesting things happen, then you might get involved, and you'll at least find out about it, and people start to know who you are. And even internal networking can be really powerful. So if maybe there's an opportunity for you to get promoted internally, or at least to get involved in something else, but does anybody know who you are? Go along, whatever's going on, go along and have your say. And I think some of visibility is also about not being scared to speak up, because I do hear this a lot from women. They go to meetings and they don't say anything because they're worried that they might get asked a question that they don't know the answer to, or what they say sounds silly. And I would say probably the first step of visibility is about having the courage to speak up. And you can prepare for that, of course. If you're going to a meeting, you know what the agenda is. Have a think, what could I input into this? What questions could I ask? And then don't be scared to speak up. So I think speaking up is actually one of the first things I'd recommend for people to do to get more visibility, and then get out there. And the benefit of visibility is that people get to know who you are. They get to know you, your reputation. They get to know that you're engaged. They get to know that you're supporting and supporting the corporate vision or whatever. And then when something else comes up, they'll go, oh, let's go and ask Sheila, because she had some really valuable insight last time. And then what happens, I was one of these people, I suspect you were, and I know other people, got involved in everything. And it's always the same people, isn't it? You see them, it's always the same people that get involved in everything. And that's because they're prepared to put their hands up. But other people need to do, and I think there's a part for the organisation to play there as well, is to go and find people that are prepared to do it and help them be visible. But visibility helps you just get out there. And get known, and then opportunities are likely to come your way.
And I'm still learning, because that's one of the things, reason I wanted to do this podcast as well, because obviously reaching out to many more leaders across the globe. So we're talking about leadership. Leadership is more than just a title, it's an attitude. So in your experience, what qualities you define for a great leader, and how can leaders better empower their teams? Because I've seen some great leaders and not so great leaders in the housing sector. So what's your opinion?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that, you know, some people are quite natural leaders, and you don't have to have the title. Just, you know, I know that from when I was very young, I was a natural leader. I don't know why, I don't know where that came from, but I just always felt like people followed me. And I wasn't scared to say, come on, let's go and do this, or, you know, what about this? And then you have to be careful that there's this balance between leadership and what's the word? So whether you're a good leader, or whether you're just like bullying people into doing things that you want to do, and you have to be careful that you're not dictating. That's the word I'm looking for. You can become a dictatorship, and we don't want leaders that dictate, but we do want leaders that inspire people. I think there's a few skills for me about leadership, and I think one is listening. I think good leaders listen to people. They don't just force their opinion on you. They don't just tell you how to do it. They listen to other people. They build that collaborative approach to things. I think also then the person that makes a good leader is somebody who's prepared to let other people, you give them clear direction, but you let other people go and do it the way they want to do it. And poor leaders, I think, are the people that go, I want you to do this and I want you to do it this way, because one, that doesn't develop anybody, and two, maybe actually somebody else has got a better idea than you, or maybe they've got a better way of doing it than you. And I learned that the hard way, because I was originally one of those leaders that kind of went, yeah, I want you to do this and I want you to do it like this, in this time, with this, doing it, you know, it was like very prescriptive. But because I always thought that I had the best way of doing it back when I was quite young. But I learned quite quickly that actually my ideas didn't always work. They weren't always the best. And once I started letting go a little bit, then you can trust other people to do it. And also, if they don't do it well, then they learn from it, because I think making mistakes is one of the biggest ways of learning. Because, you know, you've been in those situations. I know I've been in those situations where you've done something and then afterwards you've gone, oh my God, did I really do that? But they're the feelings that you never want to happen again. So you learn from those mistakes, and I don't think we should be scared of learning from mistakes. So I think good leaders are people that take people on the journey with them. And one thing I do see that happens quite a lot is that they have what they now call accidental managers. So people who are like technically good at the job then get promoted to the next level. But that doesn't make them good at that next level, because it's a very different skill being a leader, being a manager, to doing the job. And the mistake I see a lot of people make, particularly women, but not just women, is they tend to take the job with them. So they go to the next level, but they're still doing the job that they were doing. You're like, no, you've got to let go of that job. That is not your job anymore. So I say to people, you've got to stop stacking the shelves. You know, you've got to stop working in the weeds because you're now the gardener or you're the supervisor. That's not your job anymore. And also I think one of the reasons that women particularly don't step up and go for that next level job sometimes is because they think, I can't cope, I can't take on any more responsibility. But actually it's a different job. It's not more. You're not taking this job with you and doing more. It's a different job. So, you know, leadership as you step up becomes more strategic. It's more about, you know, removing blockers for people. It's more about developing your team. It's more about empowering your team. It's not about doing the doing. And that's a huge mistake I see people make, is still doing the doing when they're leaders, and they have to let go. And I think sometimes it's that like transition, isn't it, that you feel like you're not doing enough, because actually when you're a leader, sometimes you probably feel like you haven't done anything tangible that day. You haven't done a task as such, but actually you've had a meeting about the vision, or you've removed a blocker for somebody where something was happening, or you've done a really powerful training session or one-to-one. It's much more strategic. And so for me, good leadership is around understanding that leaders don't have all the answers. They definitely need to listen to people. They need to be collaborative and consider things. They need to help people learn and develop. And then they need to have that sort of strategic approach at whatever level you're at. You can just think bigger. And I think leadership is about the big picture, isn't it? Not just this little job that we're doing. I think there's a huge need for better leadership training and coaching in the sector, and probably, I mean, I've seen some other sectors as well where it's not any better. I just think people get to leadership and they either don't have the time or they don't get the support that they need to turn into great leaders, and so they become good managers but they're not really leading and inspiring people.
And also it's about building that trust as well with your team, isn't it? When you start trusting them and they start trusting you, start building that relationship as well. So you don't have to look over the shoulders all the time to see whether they're working or not, because once you start trusting, I'm sure they will deliver. So it's all about building that positive rapport with them as well.
Just a really good point, because particularly, we're seeing more and more companies wanting people to go back into the office, and that's got to be because of a lack of trust. Why else would it be? Actually, if you've got a really good vision and you've got clear direction about what people are doing and achieving, they come on that journey with you. They don't need you looking over their shoulder all the time to do that. So you're absolutely right. Trust from a leadership point of view is a really powerful thing, and it does work both ways. You have to be able to trust each other in that situation.
Yeah. So you mentioned before you took career breaks in between. So how do you balance that, and also you follow your passion as well, maintain your career when you're having these breaks? What advice would you give to those people? Because there are so many people who want to do this, and they're probably worried, how do they get back to their career again? So how did you manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of times. I mean, a couple of times I've actually managed to take. So when I very first did it, when I was quite young, I took 2 months off and I went grape picking in France with a friend, and I just asked the organisation. I said, "Can I just take 2 months off unpaid?" And I was fortunate that they said yes. 2 months isn't very long. They could cover my job quite easily, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's great." So I went off and did that, and then later when and this was actually when I was in housing. I'd taken that leap. Got that job. I'd set up the contact centre, and then nothing, it wasn't changing, and I was like, well, I've done that. And me and my husband always had this dream that he wanted to follow the Formula One season round Europe, and we were like, okay, well, let's see if we can make it happen. So I went to the organisation and said that I wanted to take 6 months unpaid leave, and I'd already thought about, okay, so if I take this 6 months unpaid leave, who could backfill my job? How could that work? So I didn't leave them with any of the questions. They didn't need to do anything. They just needed to say, is this going to work, yes or no? So I'd given them all the answers. I'd put the solution in front of them. I did also say that if you don't give me the 6 months unpaid leave, I am leaving. So this would be my notice, because I'd decided that I was going to go and do this. And it sounds like bribery, but actually I really genuinely, I was going to go and do this. So, either way, that's what happened. But because I'd put the case forward, because I'd found solutions as to how it could happen, actually they did give me 6 months unpaid leave, and because they did that, actually when I came back I was even more committed than I'd been before, and I stayed for another few years. I can't remember how long now, but I stayed for another few years, made it a success, gave them what they needed, and actually probably gave them more because they were loyal to me, if you like. I felt I was loyal to them. So I was lucky in that respect. And I think if you're going to go and ask for a career break from your organisation, I think you have to have all the answers in place before you go and ask. You have to explain, why you're doing it, what you're going to get out of it, what you're going to bring back, and that there's going to be minimal disruption about why you're for the company while you're gone. But I think otherwise, if you take the time, and I've taken time and I've left jobs and then taken time off and then gone back. And I think the biggest thing is just believing that actually these experiences that you have that are not at work are just as valuable as working experience, because travelling or whatever you decide to go off and do, there are skills and things that you learn from that you can bring back to work. So I think the biggest thing is it's all about your mindset again. It's all about understanding. I think sometimes we can think, oh God, if I take 6 months or a year off or whatever, when I come back I'm going to have to go backwards in my career, or I might not get as good a job, but don't believe that. think about it differently and think, right, okay, I've got to this point in my career, actually now I want to go and do something for me, but this is going to benefit my future employers, because I'm going to learn, different cultures. I'm going to learn how to organise things, how to plan a trip, how to deal with adversity, how to problem solve, because all of these things are part of what happens when you take a career break, whatever you decide to do. So I think a lot of it is about the mindset. And then when you do come back and you're looking for a job, it's not a career gap. It's an experience. It's a new learned experience. And I think this whole career gap thing is a bit bizarre that we use it, because actually it's all about life experiences, and we've learnt things. So whatever you put on your CV about that career gap, you put on specifically what you've learnt that's going to help you deliver that next job. And I think this is particularly pertinent perhaps for parents, because women take time off to have their children, and they might be out of the business, a business for maybe 4 years, 5 years, and suddenly they feel they only know how to be a mum. They don't know how to be at work anymore. They're not expecting, they've got to go back part-time, so they're expecting a lower level job. But actually parenting has got some of the most important skills than any job on the planet, from persuasion skills, problem solving skills, creative thinking about what it is you're going to do, organisation skills, communication skills, all these skills that you get from being a parent. So let's not call it a career gap. Let's think about it differently, and just have the confidence that you deserve that job. Whatever the job is that you think that you could do, you deserve it, and you've got a lot of skills to offer. And then it comes down to how you sell those skills to people to make sure that they want to take you on. So I think career breaks are, depending on what type of career break it is, I think it depends on how you think about it. But for me, life's too short not to have those career breaks. So that my husband's disabled now, and he's got, I won't bore you with it, but he's riddled with all sorts of issues, and he always had the dream to follow the Formula One around Europe. That was his dream. Now, if we'd left that until we retired, which is what a lot of people do, we're still not retired now, and yet for 15 years he's not been fit enough to do the trip that he wanted to do. So we did it back in 2005. He lived his dream, and then 3 or 4 years later he got diagnosed with MS, so we wouldn't have been able to do it now. So I just think, don't put things off until you retire. If you've got something you want to do, find a way to do it. We mothballed our house, or you could rent your house out, or just find a way to do it now, and don't put it off, and don't be put off because of your career, because life's just too short.
I love that advice. Don't wait for your retirement. And a lot of people I know, they have waited, and sadly you're not healthy enough to climb that big hill when you go for it to see a site or something like that. So I know a lot of people, when they hear the word redundancy, that's a bit scary stuff. So when you made redundant in 2020, you didn't just sit back, you built your own business. So how did that experience shape your views on resilience and adaptability? And can you share, because I know there are quite a few people probably listening, maybe going through that space at the moment of redundancy.
Redundancy is a hard thing, isn't it? Because we have to remember that redundancy is not personal. It's a job that's being made redundant, not the person. And I know that's easy to say, isn't it? But when you're the person in the job being made redundant, it feels very personal. And I know when I was made redundant, I actually did have those feelings to start with, because I felt let down, and I felt that I had done everything I could. I even moved house to be nearer to the job, and then within 18 months I was made redundant. And I thought, I've given a lot to this company. I've made an impact, I've supported it, I've always been loyal, I've always supported the stuff that they were doing. How is it that now they can't find a role for me? It was through a merger, but ultimately there wasn't the right job there, and I wasn't prepared to go backwards. I might have been able to get a lower level job, but I wasn't prepared to do that, because I knew that I was worth more than that. And I did, you do struggle with those feelings, but when you sit down you can't. You go, I am worth more than that. I'm not going to do that. So I actually started to think, okay, I know I'm going to be made redundant, but let's look at the positive sides of this. So the first thing was to be grateful actually for the opportunity that I'd had at that company and all of the things that I'd learned. I know that I felt that I put the effort in for them, but actually they had supported me as well. They'd helped me grow my career. They'd paid me. You know, at the end of the day, this is a transaction really, isn't it? You go to work and they pay you. It's, you know, I know I've spoken to people who have been at companies for a long, long time and feel that they're owed something. And I get that from a loyalty point of view, but actually you've been paid. That's why you're there. You've been paid. So it's about having that slightly different mindset about it. It's a transaction. But you do get those feelings. So then you've got to just stop yourself and think, right, okay, I know this is a difficult situation. I know this is going to, be hard, and I know I've got to, go out and find myself a new job or whatever. But actually, I've learned a lot here. I've had some good experiences. It's set me up for what's coming next. And then I think what comes next, you have to then sit down and think. So don't just jump into any job because you feel like you need a job. And I know financially, obviously, people will have different responsibilities and things, but really try and think about what it is you want to do, because it's an opportunity. My view is being made redundant is an opportunity for you to really think about what it is you want. And for me, when I was thinking about it, I was like, I've worked in corporate life for 34 years and I'm not sure that I want to do that anymore. What else could I do? But I was like 50 when I was made redundant, so it feels like, not that I feel old, but it does feel like at 50 you're kind of like, oh my god, there's this big change in my life. Whatever I do, it's going to be a big change. But I just decided in the end that I took a year off. I had been there a little while, so I had a decent package. I took a year off. I got made redundant in January 2020, so I had the year off that was COVID. Best year of my life. And then I started to think about what I wanted to do. And I did seriously think about going and applying for other jobs. And I did have a look out there to see what was going on. But ultimately I was like, my husband had been diagnosed with blood cancer by then as well. So I knew that I wanted to be, I didn't want a job where I was going to be away a lot or, even in the office a lot. So I wanted a bit more flexibility, and I just thought, what about if I try doing something for myself? I don't really know how that works. I have no idea how to set up a business, but let's go and find out. Let's go and give it a try. And I did give it a try, and the first year was very hard learning, because you're everything, aren't you? You're like, you're IT, you're HR, you're accounts, you're literally everything, sales, marketing, finding clients. I can do the coaching, that's not a problem, but finding the people to work with you is always the balance. And it was scary, and not everything has gone well, and you learn from that. And it is a scary world. And if I'd gone for another job in another organisation, it would have been scary as well, because I wouldn't have known the people, I wouldn't have known the systems. But something has to change, and you have to see it. For me, I think you have to try and see it as an opportunity. This isn't like, oh my god, I'm really scared. This is like, okay, I'm excited about what's going to come next. And again, it comes back to what you tell your brain. Your brain only knows what you tell it. If you tell it you're scared, you'll be scared. If you tell it you're excited, you'll be excited. And you feel very different when you lift yourself up and tell yourself exciting. So if anybody is going through redundancy at the moment, have that moment where you feel sorry for yourself, have that moment where you hate the organisation and it's not fair, but limit it. Just give yourself a couple of days or whatever, and then go, right, okay, let's just get on with it. Treat it like a project. What am I going to do next? And think about what it is you want to do, because it is an opportunity to change direction, or to go for a next level job, or to set up your own business or whatever. And I think there's lots of people out there that can help support you as well. So you're not on your own. Lots of other people have been through this and have those stories. So don't always think that you can do things on your own. But yeah, you just have to. It comes back to that courage thing again, I think, a little bit, doesn't it? It's like you just have to have the courage to convince yourself that you're still valuable. This isn't about you, this is about the organisation, and let's get excited about trying something new.
Wow, time is flying when we're having a nice conversation, isn't it? Because before we wrap up, any final piece of advice you'd like to give to listeners, especially who are navigating challenging situations in their careers? So is there any final thoughts or final advice?
I think, one thing I'd probably just like to touch on quickly is well-being. And I'm not going to go big into well-being, but I would just say that whatever's going on in your life, you need to look after yourself. And I know a lot of people who work really hard at the jobs that they've got, and then they struggle, they get overwhelmed, they get sick, they struggle from burnout. And there are definitely ways that people can do that, and people have to put their own boundaries in place. And I know organisations have obviously got a duty of care for their colleagues. However, it's our responsibility to look after ourselves, and sometimes you just have to say no to things, and you have to decide that you're not going to work. And it is only a job. I mean, I spend my whole life telling people how to get the next level job, but not at the expense of your health. So I think definitely look after yourself, and then do some reflection, do some positive thinking about your actual self, and start to believe in yourself. Believe that you can do whatever it is that you want to do. Get clear about what you want to do, make a brave decision, and take one step. Have the courage to just take one step forward about whatever it is that you want to do. So yeah, that would be my final thoughts.
That was an amazing time, Sheila. It's an absolute pleasure speaking to you today, and your stories and insights has been so inspiring. I could just talk forever. I'm sure our listeners will take away some valuable lessons from your experiences, like visibility, the mindset, limiting belief, and all of that is about, and especially when you're hitting with difficult situations like redundancy, it's an opportunity. From overcoming self-doubt to helping others unblock their potential, your work is truly impactful. Thank you again for joining us, High Tea for Honey. I'm sure your wisdom will continue to help many more women in their journey to success. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Honey. It's been lovely being here.
Thank you.